The Vergas Show is brought to you by Spanky Stone Hearth, casual fine dining on beautiful Rose Lake. Vergas State Bank, your locally owned community full-service bank. Vergas Event Center for gatherings large or small, including weddings. Vergas Liquor Store, where all the profits profit Vergas.
Make the right call. Call Hanson's, the most trusted name in plumbing and heating.
Hi, welcome to the Vergas Show. I'm Sherri Hanson. Hopefully you made it to Ollie's Ride. It was just an awesome day in Vergas. It always is whenever you are raising money for an organization. And Curt Setter's here with me today. Thank you so much, Curt, for what you do with hospice. And that's what Ollie's Ride is all about, is raising money for hospice.
Absolutely. And again, just being part of this family, seeing how they've operated. You know, Ollie's got a wonderful legacy because of this. But I don't know if they realize what a legacy that Christy and her family are leaving for themselves as well, for running this event now for 14 years.
Isn't that the truth? When you're grieving and you lose somebody, you go through so many different emotions. But when you have the strength and the tenacity to turn that into something better for somebody else, yep. That's a true legacy.
Absolutely, tragedy into triumphs and. Yeah. And it's just been a blessing to be a part of it.
Right, and that's, hospice. We're going to talk about hospice today. Tell me a little bit how you got involved with hospice, Curt.
Oh boy, well, I fell absolutely backwards into this organization. In life, as in golf, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and I've been very lucky in my life. So I left a teaching and coaching job in Minnetonka that I had done for over 37 years, and I did that because my mother needed some help at home. She wanted to stay home in South Moorhead. She'd been alone at that time for already 21, 22 years since my father passed. And so I left my family and I moved into Mom's basement, and I said, Mom, as long as I'm down here, you'll be upstairs. And I think that was a real comfort to her.
Stay home.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we were like that for 16 months. But I happened to go to work for this organization at the very same time that I moved back. Had very little idea what I was doing, but I had great people that hired me, that supported me, that saw some value in what I could bring to hospice. And now it's 10 years, and it's been really one of the honors of my life to represent this organization.
Well, and you get to go around and you get to see all these different events, and like you say, thank people, just recognize the fact that they are doing something, but also have had a loss in their life. And so, that's a happy balance to try to figure out, the best way to do that. So,
absolutely. And grieving is a tough one. It's so individual, and everybody grieves differently. And absolutely. I learned that very early on, that I certainly will never judge anybody ever again on how they grieve, because it really is an individual thing.
So what's your actual role then with hospice, as far as we were talking a little bit earlier, the process? I mean, if a family recognizes that their loved one just needs to be at home to die with dignity,
yep.
with grace.
They just need to call our organization. Our website is www.hrrv.org, hospiceoftheredrivervalley.org. They call, they express concern. We usually have people admitted within 24 hours. Nice. Once they call, if they qualify. Qualification is much easier than people realize, so that's why I always hear that I wish we would have started this earlier. Right. Because people still have the misconception that hospice is just at the end of life.
Right, and that's a big misconception.
It really is.
And so explain that to me.
Well, if there's a logical expectation between the patient's primary doctor and our head of our doctor, our head doctor, I'm not saying that right, but of 6 months or less, then they qualify for hospice care. Okay.
And I've actually heard of people who've been on hospice and then gone off of hospice.
Absolutely. And I'll share a quick story of a woman who, I used to play basketball when I was young in her haymow. And then I hadn't seen her for 50 years, and she was living in Arizona. She'd moved back. She was 100 when she came under our care, and she graduated
from hospice.
From hospice because she no longer qualified because of her medical condition. She now is back on, but she's going to be turning 102 next week.
Great.
And
amazing.
So we have people, as long as they continue to qualify, if that expectation is there, then they can receive hospice care for years, like you mentioned.
Okay, and so then your role is finding caregivers and meeting with or tell me again.
Yeah, my role is certainly not that. I do the easy lifting.
Okay.
These wonderful RNs and chaplains and social workers and CNAs. They do the heavy lifting. So my role now as an ombudsman, when they told me that's what I was, I had to look it up, like I mentioned, Sherri. But basically, I'm an employee of Hospice of the Red River Valley, but I'm actually an advocate for patients and their families. So I call the designated primary caregiver of every patient that comes under our care within the first week. I also do a follow-up at 30 days. So I'm something around 17,000 calls now. And historically, we're under something of 2% of any type of follow-up at all, and it might be something very simple.
Right.
Or it could be something that's maybe more serious.
But you're there
we're
to
not
take care of
perfect,
that.
but so that means that 98% of the calls that I make usually are, you people are angels. We had no idea what hospice could do for us. I wish we would have gotten our loved one under your care earlier. So again, that's a tough job, and they actually reimburse me for doing that, so it's pretty wonderful.
That's pretty wonderful, is right. Now, we were talking a little bit about a new project that you've got going on called Heather's House. Tell me a little bit about that.
So we are building the first freestanding hospice house in North Dakota, and we've been doing this for it's been about 7 years now, I think, actually. We're hoping to open in May
of 24.
Of 24, yep. An 18-bed facility, wonderful rooms, wonderful family rooms, a beautiful chapel, water features in every room, a bell tower. Just it's going to be a wonderful place, 11 acres, where people can come if they need additional medical care that for whatever reason we can't give them wherever they do call home. The idea is that it's going to be short-term, that they'll come in, we'll be able to get that taken care of, and then they'll be able to transition home again. We also know that that will not always be the case, so it's going to be a wonderful place for patients and families to be if that's where they do pass. I know my mother 8 years ago passed in a hospital room. Not criticizing hospital rooms, but they're small, there's bells, there's whistles, there's people, and this is going to be something that's going to be like a beautiful home setting. And if that's where they take their last breath, then that's a great place for the patients and also for their families to be.
You know, there's just so much dignity, and there's such a special time when you are helping that person move on to the next stage of their life, basically. Yeah, and when they pass, it doesn't have to be, like you say, with bells and whistles. And so having this Heather's House is going to be pretty. It's going to
be a great thing
special
for the state of North Dakota, but it can be used for anybody in our service area, which is now up to about 50 counties and 50,000 square miles.
Oh, wow.
When I came 10 years ago, it was about a little over 30 and 30.
Okay.
And we're not doing that. We're a nonprofit. We're only doing that because we're identifying places that are either underserved or not served, and we're saying everybody deserves to die with comfort, dignity, and respect. So let's go.
Right.
So we went out to Bismarck a couple of years ago. We've really expanded up to both borders.
By expanding, though, I'm sure that you're running into what everybody else is doing. You need people.
We need people, and we've been lucky that way. I know I'm in the Fergus Falls office now, and they had a hospice there for probably over 30 years that they can no longer staff. So they actually reached out to us and said, would you be able to pick up what we no longer can? And of course we were most honored to be able to do that in the Fergus area and beyond.
Well, Curt, I really appreciate you coming, and so often when you hear, someone, that somebody's gone on hospice, I remember the perception a few years back used to be, oh no, that's not that's not a good thing, because it means that the person's dying. And I think that somehow we've gone with what your organization has done anyway, has created a perception that thankfully hospice is there because there is that dignity to help this person.
We've tried very hard, and that stigma is still there a little bit. Plus we're dealing with people who were born in the 20s and 30s, which is a generation of I don't need help.
Right.
And so that's been a big thing to overcome too. But we're getting there, and we've got a big caseload now, of course, in our service area, and we are very honored and pleased to care for everyone, whether there be 100 or whether they be very young people, which we have more of than you'd imagine.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your doing, Curt. It's just amazing. And so you have a good day in Vergas.
Pleasure.